Have you ever wondered why, despite all your efforts, it seems that there is something invisible to break the advance of your life? Have you ever felt like you are walking against a tide you don't see, but you feel every day? Works hard, pray, remain firm in principles, but financial tranquility is not enough. Conflicts do not cease, and the constant feeling is that something is draining your energy, sucking your hope, sabotaging your plans. This is no coincidence. And more importantly, this has a name and has a solution. I do not speak here of superstitions or empty promises, but of a spiritual wisdom that crossed generations, was protected from forgetfulness by people of deep faith, and, in times of great need, revealed by those who lived in close communion with the divine. Among these chosen souls was a simple and extraordinary man, known as Padre Pio de Pietrelcina, whose body carried the stigmas of Christ and whose soul saw clearly the dilemmas of the spiritual world. Father Pio not only welcomed the faithful with advice and blessings, he saw beyond the visible. His eyes were not limited to the flesh, but crossed the veils of the material world and touched the spiritual realities that surround us. He saw where most do not see. And it is from this vision that a little-known but deeply transformative teaching was born. A teaching that talked about how to protect the house against harmful spiritual influences, how to purify the environments where we live, and how to make room for God's blessings to flow freely in our home and in our lives. And it all started with a simple element present in virtually all kitchens: salt. Yes, the salt, but not the way you imagine. Not as a seasoning or amulet, but as a sacred instrument, when used with faith, prayer, and placed in the right places. Places that Padre Pio, with his sharp spiritual vision, identified as invisible doors where the energies, good or bad, enter and fix in the houses. Don't think this is magic or superstition. It is a spiritual practice deeply connected to Scripture and Christian tradition. Salt is mentioned numerous times in the Bible as a symbol of purity, alliance, protection. It was used in offerings, rituals of purification, and the consecration of spaces. Jesus called his disciples salt of the earth, and it was not by chance. He knew of the symbolic and spiritual power that this element carries. Elisha used salt to heal the poisoned waters of a city. And in the same way, the home that today faces scarcity, conflicts, recurring diseases, can also be healed and transformed when applying with faith this ancestral orientation that Father Worse has preserved and transmitted. Over the years, many have heard this counsel in confession or through priests near the saint and saw their lives change completely, not by the strength of salt, but by the strength of faith. Because salt in this context acts as a channel, a symbol, a visible reminder of God's invisible presence. Imagine your home as a body. It breathes, accumulates, vibrates. And just as our body has sensitive points, input doors, places where energy focuses, the house also has. According to Padre Pio, there are 5 points that should be specially protected. They are like spiritual nerves of the home. If they are unprotected, they become easy entries for spiritual disturbances, anguish without reason, insomnia, constant fights, financial blockages, diseases that medicine does not explain. Therefore, the consecrated salt, placed with faith and prayer in these points, becomes an invisible wall, a silent but powerful protection. And the testimonies about it do not stop arising. People who lived in absolute despair, and by applying this teaching sincerely and constancy, they began to realize minor changes, which over time became great twists. A lady who lived alone in a small apartment in Bari, Italy, reported that after years of feeling a heavy presence in her home, which made her wake up tired, with pains and thoughts of defeat, she decided to follow the guidance she had heard from a priest who had lived with Padre Pio. She slept in peace, her finances began to rebalance, and most impressive, received an unexpected proposal to sell an inherited property that had been stopped for years. She herself said, "It wasn't the money that saved me. It was the peace that dwelt again here." With her, the solutions came. And this is the central point we need to understand. God's abundance does not start with money. It begins with spiritual order, with peace, with the liberation of all that ties us and prevents us from seeing the ways that God opens. Padre Pio understood that often what prevents a family's prosperity is not the lack of effort, but the existence of an invisible spiritual barrier. A spiritually exposed house is like a fortress with open doors for the enemy, and when evil enters, it does not come with monster appearance. It manifests itself in emotional scarcity, discord, tiredness for no reason, in relationships that break, in the opportunities that are gone without explanation. That's why Padre Pio, even living in enclosure, devoted so much time to guide people about how to protect their homes. He said the home is the first battlefield. If there is spiritual disorder there, everything else will be reached. Therefore, protecting home is not a spiritual luxury, it is a vital necessity. And it begins with faith, prayer, and small acts that reveal our intention to make the space where we live an extension of heaven. This practice with salt, therefore, is a symbol of consecration. She reminds us that God wants to dwell with us, not just in our hearts, but in our environments. And when God dwells, evil does not remain. Darkness does not resist the light. By placing salt in these 5 points, which I will reveal in the next blocks, you will be saying with your attitude, "Lord, this house is yours. May all that does not come from you withdraw. May all that is yours remain and flourish." And don't be surprised if, when doing so, changes begin to occur. Some subtle, like a lighter environment, a quieter sleep, others surprising, such as gates opening, debts being resolved, relationships being restored. It all starts when you decide to take possession of the spiritual authority given to you as the son or daughter of God. But before we go to the revelation of the 5 places and the corresponding prayers, I want you to allow yourself a break to reflect, not only about what you have heard so far, but about what you have felt in your home, in your life. Have you been living with weight in your heart, with sensations you can't explain? Have you noticed repetitive cycles of struggle and loss? Believe me, you are not alone. Many are going through this, and the light that shines in this knowledge can, yes, change everything. Not by the strength of the ritual, but by the faith with which you decide to act. And if you have come here, you may be feeling that this is not just another video. It is a call, an invitation to reconnect your home to the source of life, the presence of God, the blessing that has always been available, but needed a purified space to arrive. Father Pio taught that the spirit world is like an underground river. We do not see him with our eyes, but we feel his effects in the restless mind, on bad nights, in the harsh words exchanged among family members without apparent cause, in the doors that seemed open and suddenly close before us. He said that many of the problems that families face have roots not in what is visible, but in what is invisibly drags on the walls, the corridors, the decisions made under spiritual pressure. That is why, still in life, it clearly guided those who sought him, protect his home as protecting his souls. And this protection began with a small but deeply symbolic gesture, placing salt at 5 specific points of the home while making a prayer of delivery and spiritual authority. But beware, this is not a popular superstition, nor a magic formula. It is a conscious spiritual statement. It is like raising a banner in the territory where God is invited to live. Where he reigns, no evil influence prevails. The first point that Padre Pio identified as strategic was the main entrance. The door of the house is where it all starts. People come in, opportunities come, decisions are made from those who pass it. But it can also become a passage of spiritual weight if not consecrated. What many do not realize is that what physically enters often carries an invisible load that remains. The environment contaminates itself, and the whole family feels the weight. Padre Pio ordered to put a small handful of salt in the upper corners of the door, or discreetly in the stop or under the rug. Meanwhile, a prayer of purification was recommended. That, through this door, between only what comes from above, may evil retreat, and that the good finds abode, that this entrance is a portal of peace and not of conflict. In numerous stories of the faithful who followed this teaching, which was once a point of tension where discussions began, where the environment seemed dense, it turned into a place of lightness. The house was beginning to breathe. The second point was where the family sleeps. The bed is the altar of rest. There we renew our strengths, dream, rest the body, but also open the soul. It is during sleep that many spiritual attacks intensify, and so many suffer from insomnia, nightmares, sense of oppression, or wake up more tired than when they lie down. Father Pio said that the bed was like the warrior's heart. If it is unprotected, the whole body falls. Therefore, he advised a small salt container under the bed, preferably in the center, in a clean cloth or a simple bowl. In positioning salt, prayer should be sincere. Lord, keep my rest. May no shadow touch me as I sleep. May the angels of heaven watch my soul, that I wake up renewed and ready to walk in your light. People who lived by bad nights began, after this practice, experiencing deep rest, lucid dreams, relief of inexplicable pain, and renewed energy in the morning. The difference was not in the mattress, but in the spiritual atmosphere. The third point is the kitchen, and here the meaning is deeper than it seems. Father Pio was fully aware that food is not only physical nutrition, it also carries the intention of the preparation, the energy of the environment where it is done, and directly influences the body and the spirit. The kitchen, therefore, is one of the most sensitive points of the house. It is in it that life happens, which shares, which transforms what comes from the earth into livelihood. Therefore, the holy Capuchin oriented to put salt in a discreet corner of the closet, over the stove, or near the pantry, while saying, God, who multiplied the bread, multiplies our provision, that this kitchen is a place of abundance, gratitude, sharing. That no food brings pain or lack, but that everything that is prepared here is blessing to the body and the soul. Families facing recurring problems with food, table conflicts, or even financial difficulties regarding sustenance reported significant changes. The food, even simple, had another flavor. The table became more than a place of meals. It became an altar of communion. The fourth point is where the papers, accounts, documents, and also where you work, whether a formal office or a makeshift table are resting. Padre Pio saw this place as a decision center, where you deal with numbers, planning, dreams, but also where the fear of scarcity hides. How many don't look at your accounts with despair? How many feel an oppressive anxiety when opening the bank statement or reviewing the month's expenses? This is a place where the spiritual enemy acts hard, feeding fear, insecurity, feeling of disability. Therefore, he oriented to consecrate this point by placing the salt discreetly between the papers, in a drawer, or near the computer, next to a powerful prayer. Lord of my house and my future, guide my hands and my thoughts. May every decision here be aligned with your will. May the righteous prosperity find the way, and that all fear dissolves into your peace. Testimonies abound of people who, after consecrating this place, began to see clarity where before there was confusion. Financial solutions emerged, creative ideas appeared, and previously invisible opportunities became real. The fifth and last point is the center of the house, the spiritual heart of the home. No matter the size of the property, there is always a room that represents the center of family life, often the room or a constant passage corridor. Padre Pio believed that this center should be the throne of God in the house, a point of spiritual equilibrium. There, salt should be placed with reverence, perhaps over a discreet furniture, a sideboard, a small bowl near the wall. prayer here is the most comprehensive. Lord, reigns in the midst of our house. May your presence be felt by all who enter here. May your peace go down every conversation, every gesture, every silence. May the center of our home be your throne. From this center, harmony begins to radiate. Couples in crisis reconcile. Far away, children come back. Chaotic environments find order. It all starts with the spiritual decision to say, "Here God dwells." These 5 points are not a recipe ready for wealth or immediate success. Padre Pio made that clear. They are invitations to the presence of God. They are spiritual statements made with the heart. Salt is just the physical reminder, the visible testimony of what is happening in the soul of the house. And each week, he recommended renewing this salt, preferably on Sundays after Mass, as a way to keep the home spiritually active, clean, free. The anterior salt should be discarded in running water, in a drain, in a river, in a sink, with gratitude. And the new salt, placed with prayer, signals that you are still willing to live in the divine light. And now, if this video has made sense to you so far, I want to make a special request, but it's not the usual. I will not just ask you to subscribe to the channel. What I ask you is to join this stream of spiritual protection. May it be part of this community that is rediscovering faith as living, concrete, and transformative force. If you have come to this moment, it is because you are looking for more than answers. You are looking for transformation. Then click to subscribe, not as one who signs another channel, but as who lights a candle and declares, "I also choose the light." And I want to invite you to do something simple but significant. Write in the comments a single word that represents what you want to restore in your home. It can be peace, union, abundance, healing, hope, just one word. But come from the bottom of the heart. When writing, you are activating your intention. And when we read each other, we are connecting ourselves spiritually. This community is not made of spectators, but of people in search of the sacred. So leave your word, and let's create this circle of faith, protection, and transformation together. When these 5 protections are established, we are not just putting salt at points in the house. We are actually rebuilding an invisible wall around our home. A fortress of faith that prevents hopelessness from settling in, that fear takes care, that discord finds shelter. Father Pio, with his firm look and heart taken by compassion, said that the home is not just an address, it is a spiritual territory. And all spiritual territory needs surveillance. He knew that in families, this is where the enemy tries to cause the deepest damage. Warding up hearts, undermining confidence, sowing tiredness, disorganizing the financial. Therefore, protecting the house is also to protect the ties that support us. Many think things only change when the bank account improves, when luck turns, when someone outside offers help. But the longer-lasting changes always start from the inside, and in this case, from within the house itself. When the home is spiritually aligned, it is as if a field of blessing began to expand, and everything around it begins to respond. Father Pio insisted that faith was not an etheric thing. It was a living, daily practice, and protecting the house was an act of faith in motion. The stories of people who put it into practice are moving and often challenging even for skeptics. A widower who lived alone in a small town in the Basilicata region said that for years he felt tired, as if he carried the weight of the world on his back. It didn't sleep well. The house was always cold, even on hot days, and the constant feeling was that something was out of place, even if everything was apparently in order. After hearing from an ancient friar a guidance similar to that of Padre Pio, he decided to try. He applied salt to the 5 points of the house, prayed as he was instructed, and did not wait for miracles. But what happened was more than he could imagine. In the following weeks, he started sleeping with serenity. The daylight seemed more alive indoors. Visits that had not appeared for a long time began to arrive spontaneously, and the feeling of loneliness was being replaced by a smooth, constant presence that he could not explain. "I feel like someone is here with me. I don't see it, but I know I'm not alone anymore," he reported in a letter sent to a convent. These reports multiply because what is at stake is not just money, health, or relationships. It is the flow of divine providence that, when it finds an open, pure, and protected home, manifests itself in all areas. A couple in crisis, after years on the brink of divorce, decided to apply spiritual protection orientation at home after finding an old book about Father Pio's life. They had no more faith in almost anything, but they decided to try for the last time, not for marriage, but for their children. They put the salt, prayed, and did not talk about what they felt. But something started to change. Small kindnesses reappeared, the discussion ceased, and the house's atmosphere no longer looked like an arena of war to become a shelter again. They could not explain, but they said that the house had again had smell of peace. And when that happens, what seemed impossible becomes reconstruction. The heart, once hardened, finds a way to love again. But Father Pio warned, what opens the doors of the miracle is not salt. It is the sincere faith. Salt is just a sign, a mark of spiritual intention that each person carries at the moment he decides to sanctify the place where he lives. Without faith, salt is just a spice. With faith, it is a shield, and it is not a noisy faith, nor based on easy promises. It is a silent faith, made of trust, surrender, and perseverance. He said that the true miracle was the inner transformation that began when a person, in the face of his problems, instead of despairing, chose to trust God in a practical way, sanctifying his space, ordering his intentions, seeking a life aligned with the divine. Many of the blessings reported by those who followed this practice did not come as a ray of heaven, but as a sequence of small events that changed everything. It is important to understand that evil does not always present itself in a wide, open way. He disguises herself as routine, settles in tiredness, hides in unknown words, settles in coldness among family members, and gradually, without realizing themselves, steals the brightness of the house. It makes the days heavier, the tense environments and the shorter conversations. Padre Pio saw this clearly. During the confessions, he realized when the root of suffering was not only in personal sin, but in the contamination of the environment where the person lived. And in such cases, he oriented, "Purify your home, make him an altar, and the rest will come." This purification began with prayer, with repentance, but also with practical attitudes such as salt use, the removal of objects that carried heavy memories, and the opening of the heart to start over. In times like those we live in, where anxiety is almost constant, where economic and emotional instability affects whole homes, it is even more urgent to recover this wisdom. The houses became a hurry, noise, running, but they need to be refuges again. It is no use seeking peace on vacation, on the weekend, or in external places if the home itself is spiritually polluted. And that's where the practice of salt, coupled with prayer and the consecration of the home, acts as a deep cleaning, a spiritual reboot that not only removes what is negative, but also invites what is divine to remain. A young mother who lived in constant tension for not getting a job, says that after applying this teaching, she received 3 work proposals in the same week. But more than that, she reports that the most valuable was to see her young son to sleep quietly for the first time in months. It was as if the house had been smiling again, she said, thrilled. This is the essence of what Padre Pio taught. Spirituality begins where one steps on the floor of the house, in the vibration of the rooms, in the intention with which it sweeps, cooks, talks. The house needs to be a sanctuary, a place where angels feel freedom to enter, where faith has space, not only in the portraits or images hung on the walls, but in the actions and attitudes of each resident. A spiritually protected house also becomes a lighthouse for the neighborhood, a place of welcome to friends, a shelter where God feels comfortable inhabiting. This is why this practice, as simple as it may seem, has such deep effects. Because it reorganizes the spiritual, and when the spiritual is organized, everything else aligns itself. Many people confuse blessings with grand events. They hope the miracle will come in sudden luck form, an unexpected fortune, a spectacular event that revolutionizes their lives in the blink of an eye. But those who have learned from Father Pio's silent spirituality know that the greatest miracles look more like the sunrise than with an explosion. They come slowly but are irresistible. And the practice of spiritual protection with salt is one of those everyday miracles that, when put into practice with true faith, make room for God to go gradually, ordering every corner of existence. The miracle can come as peace in mind, like a day without discussion in a house that lived years in tension, as an employment contract that arrives after months of silence, or as a simple moment of spontaneous gratitude amid routine. Because when the divine presence settles in the environment, even silence becomes prayer. This presence is alive, and she responds to a simple gesture, but loaded with intention. What this practice does is open a spiritual window through which light comes in, guidance comes in, it comes clarity. The person begins to make decisions with more discernment because the confusion that once plagued the mind goes away. It begins to realize details, signs, small inspirations that previously went unnoticed. And it is in this process that creative solutions before unthinkable reconciliations, opportunities that were already around but could not be seen. The home, once suffocated by the invisible weight of tension, scarcity, doubt, begins to breathe differently. It is as if the air is clean, as if the furniture, the walls, the rooms, everything began to cooperate with the harmony of the house. This is not just a religion, it is a lifestyle in which the spiritual is integrated with daily life. Spiritual protection, taught by Padre Pio so clearly and practically, transforms the environment and consequently transforms people. And when the transformation is true, it spreads. A house that vibrates in light begins to influence even the neighbors. It begins to become a point of refuge for those who arrive tired, sad, discouraged. It begins to be recognized as a home where things work, where there is respect, joy, serenity, and this is not just beautiful, it is necessary. We live in a time when homes are more vulnerable than ever. The bombing of anxiety, fear, and distrust is daily. If we do not create spaces where the peace of God can dwell, we will be swallowed by this incessant noise. This is why this practice is so important. It not only protects, she restores. She invites the sacred to live with us. And now, if all this spoke to your heart, I want to finish this video with a very special request. And I want you to feel this invitation as an extension of what we share so far. If you are not yet part of this community, subscribe to the channel. But not because this is the custom, not because every video asks. Subscribe because you feel that you have found something you find not easily. A space where faith is treated in depth, truth with purpose. A place where stories are shared and lives can be transformed by the light of living spirituality. And if it touched you, don't keep it just for you. Share this video with someone you love and may need exactly that word, this gesture, this practice that can turn on hope in your home again. And now I invite you, with all the heart, to be part of the conversation. Leave your story here in the comments. What did you feel when watching? When did you realize that something inside you started to change? If you have already applied some form of spiritual protection to your home, tell us. If you never applied but want to try, write it too. This space is not just made of said words, it is built with the words you write, with the testimonies you share, with the faith that grows when we see that we are not alone. Your experience can be the answer that someone on the other side is waiting to believe again. Thank you so much for walking with me here. May your home be a place of light, peace, provision, and that divine protection, the one that Padre Worsened so generously taught us to seek, be present in every room, every step, in every decision of his life.